Maybe it's my ego, maybe it's my ego. So don't mind capping when I put them on a team, no. You gon' need to chill, get a team for that primo, ego.
So as a leader, what am I supposed to do with a top 10 work trends list from SIOP, which is the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology? Oftentimes in my work, we're running into a lot of jargon and phrases out there, and there's a handful of them here in this 2022 report from SIOP that likely anybody in organizational development, in a leadership role, and especially in mid-size and larger companies are hearing these words, and immediately you get this list, and what are we doing about this? Are we doing something about this in this division? With that, I thought it might be useful to go down to some of these and simplify this into what the heck am I supposed to do about this? I manage people. I have things to do in my job that I'm measured against: numbers, quality control, products going out the door, revenue numbers. What do I make of this? And what should I actually focus on if I'm in a role? So we're going to go down the 10. We'll go from 10, trend 10, all the way down to trend 1. And the point of this being to simplify this down to something that you could actually do something about as a normal person that speaks in words that are normal versus some of these corporate-y, consultant-y, jargon-y language that maybe begs somebody to sell you something. So hopefully we'll simplify it down and you could take some action on it. So let's start with trend 10. Enabling organizational culture in a changing workplace environment. Come on, you already have a plan for that, don't you? Just walk that up to the boardroom and here's my plan. In all seriousness, let's break this down. Enabling organizational culture in a changing workplace environment. Culture and then environment. So really with this whole line, what we're talking about is how well do you listen to people? So what are you supposed to do with this as a leader? Am I enabling organizational culture in a changing workplace? Do I have means? Do I have space of time available? And are they clearly earmarked to listen to the people that I'm responsible for? Whether I have 2 or 3 employees, whether I have 10,000 employees. Do I have time laid out to hear what's going on in their world? Their perceptions of what's the culture around here? Good, bad, and different. What should we keep, stop, and start doing? And then when and if I am listening to people in that in those settings, how am I adjusting when I get feedback? Do I have a mechanism to weigh and measure some of those? Scale them out to figure out what should we take action on? So that when I am asked, hey, trend number 10, BJ, how are you enabling organizational culture in a changing workplace environment? I can talk about, I'm glad you asked. We have town halls, listening sessions. We're getting feedback through these surveys. Here's what we're doing to bring it in. And here's the quick and, or the big and, here's how we're showing return on the investment that our people have made in giving us feedback, giving us answers to those questions. We've done this, we've done that, we've done this. So in that sense, in my tag, my big corporate-y, jargon-y tag, listen to people, I am enabling organizational culture in a changing work environment. So it just has to be frequent enough listening with frequent enough and near enough term return on changes at the leadership level that are deemed important to answer that question. And then you are on top of trend number 10. Let's go to trend number 8. I might have erased trend number 9. Maybe I'll get that some other time. We'll go to 8. Creating effective diversity, equity, and inclusion interventions. Creating effective diversity, equity, and inclusion interventions. All right, this is a buzz one. If you want to listen to my take on DEI and other identity-related things, I did 2 podcasts already on that, and you can go into that deeper. In a sense, do I need a department title or someone? Do I have somebody that's their title is DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion? Are we doing things? You can do all that if you want to win the fashion show. Look at me, I have this. Look at me, I'm doing this. And by the way, if you're recruited for a DEI role, I would say be careful to not get pigeonholed, that your influence only lives in that space, because then other people can control you with the term DEI. That must be this initiative. You're stuck in this initiative and project role. So what would my answer be to, are we creating effective interventions for DEI? Are you creating awareness? Do you have opportunities on the regular throughout a year in your organization, if I work there, that I can better become self-aware? Am I having conversations? Are you bringing things to bear that help me grow in my own self-awareness? If we don't start with self-awareness and we don't capture and understand ourselves, we're stuck with ego. The less I know about myself, the bigger my ego gets. The bigger my ego gets, the more space I push. It's a space creator. It's the distance between me and other people. So if I'm not self-aware, I distance people further. Many of these programs are starting from the outside in. You need to know about this. You need to know. And you're like, whoa. It starts with understanding self, accepting self, learning self. What moves me? What drives me? What's my story? Only then can we now turn our direction to others and be prepared to be curious, to be prepared to listen and really hear another person's perspective. Because in essence, if you think about the ends, when have we won diversity, equity, and inclusion? Which I've talked to a lot of my clients, and there's not a very clear answer to that question. I think we've won if you have a self-aware workforce, a self-aware team. When you have that, you have a very fertile environment for productive conversations between people that can be very different on all kinds of levels. So trend number 8, am I creating effective diversity, equity, and inclusion interventions? Do I have installations that involve people becoming self-aware, having those conversations, even getting coaching, and then, and only then, aiming that and directing it toward understanding and learning more about others? That is trend number 8. Trend number 7. This one is far more loaded if you ask me. Stress and burnout. That is number 7. Stress and burnout. Raise your hand. Anybody experienced stress and burnout recently? Probably lots. So what's the easy answer to that? What am I supposed to do with this answer? I'm going to hit this from a few different levels. Stress and burnout. Where does stress come from? Stress comes from, it's essentially a gap between how many priorities do I have to manage and how much time and resources do I have to manage those priorities. So that's one bucket way to think about it. And then burnout becomes, how much am I giving of myself, delivering, doing for others, things that do not bring me joy? So we're going to put those in 2 buckets. I'm going to try to hold them in my head. I'll start with the last one first for burnout. Have you ever been burned out on a healthy lifestyle? Have you ever been burned out with, you know what, every day I just laugh too much? Or, you know what, that was so much fun. I couldn't possibly do that all the time. So think about these moments and things you do that bring you joy, that fill you up, and think like, oh, BJ, well, that's not the real world. That's not work. Hang on a second. When you're filled up with joy, when you're doing things that bring you joy, do you have more energy or less energy? When you have more energy, are you able to deliver more or less value in the same or less amount of time? Ding, ding. So to resolve burnout, have we asked and reached out to our team members, the people in our company, what brings you joy? Instead of asking, are you burnt out? Let's just create all kinds of vacation. Let's let people just go away. Let's get them away from here. It's just exhausting in this place. So hold on a second. This is your company, okay? When you want people to be coming in, feeling and doing things that bring them joy and also bring value to your customers and bring value to their teammates. So maybe start at the other end. Let's leave stress and burnout to the side a second and start asking for the antithesis, which is way more fun to talk about. Instead of asking, why are you burned out, to likely a group of people that aren't probably terribly self-aware because they're stressed to high heaven and they are burned out, all they're going to ask for is time and vacation. I just know I need to get the hell out of here for a while and not think about this. However, when I sit down with you and honestly and authentically, and I ask you, hey, I'd love to learn what brings you joy. What brings you joy? What are the type of things that fill you with energy? And let's have a few conversations about this. This isn't a one-off. And as that starts to happen and you start opening the air for those type of conversations, well, how's that going to resolve burnout, BJ? Then we're going to go back to stress, which, stick with me here, which I talked about is I have far too many quote unquote priorities for the given amount of time and resources I have to navigate them. This right here is the relationship between person and job. Relationship between person and job. And again, this is a work trend, so we're going to stick with work for the time being. So how do I resolve stress and burnout? Well, in the burnout, we already have a solution there, which go figure out what brings people joy. And we're going to try to instill more of that into a day-to-day work environment. Managing stress is the other piece of that. How well am I shaping and crafting jobs for, first of all, to create value? We have results we need from our business. To get those results, we have a business plan or a strategic plan. And from that plan, we have kind of roles and work and things like that that go into the product or service that we deliver. That requires jobs. So when we're remaking and looking at jobs, how well do we understand the behavioral competencies of those jobs? Or I'm using jargon right there. Or the behaviors needed every day to do that job effectively. How much are you emailing? How much are you sitting? How much are you talking? How much are you listening? How much are you writing? How much are you reading? What location are you at? Do you change locations through the day or do you not? How much conflict is there in the environment, i.e., heated conversations about certain things? How little conflict is there? How much process is there in the work? I could go on and on and on. But how well have we rounded out the behaviors that flow in through that job? Once we understand that, we can look at the jobs before we're talking about people and figure out if all these jobs, when we look at these, do they take a reasonable amount of time a day? Is it fair to get this whole job done in a day? Oh my gosh, it takes Dave 10 hours to do that job, but he does it well. All right, that's more than one job then. That is more than one job, and Dave is going to be stressed and probably burned out a lot. So what we would do is we would shape up these jobs within reason and figure out, can a normal standard person do this job within a given workday to provide the value in the service or product offering to our customers, yes or no? Once we've done that work, i.e. we're evaluating jobs, we're doing it at a deeper level, then we can go figure out how well do we mesh our people to these roles. And by the way, we're not looking for like these perfect fits. Like you go to work, there's a percentage of your job, you'll do some things that cost you energy. You get paid money and you want that to be balanced out to a degree. So there are some things that are going to cost you energy. But it shouldn't be your whole job. My whole job exhausts me. It's Monday. That's probably poor job fit is what you're looking at. But what if I do this, BJ, and my whole team doesn't fit? First of all, unlikely. If it was that much of an unfit, they wouldn't be there anymore and your clients or your customers would not be getting the value out of your product. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. However, are you going to find gaps? You probably will. And what happens with the gaps is coaching and development, which can happen at you, the leader or manager level, or you can figure out, is it a skill gap that's separating the person from being able to completely do the job? Is it a behavior gap? They're not quite the listener we need them to be, or we really need them to speak up and be more confident in meetings. These are trainable situations that I, as a leader, can coach and mentor someone through on a consistent basis over time to narrow that gap between person and job. So if I'm in that environment, BJ, and I work for you, you have me in programs or coaching to do that. I'm doing now, getting ready to do one job that one person can do. What happens to the number of priorities that I'm working on? I go from maybe 5 to the 2 things that you really need me to deliver on in this job that a reasonable person can do. Am I as stressed anymore? No. There's a plan for me to be successful at this, not a plan for just anyone, a plan for me, the way that I'm wired to do the work. And when it comes to burnout now, all of a sudden, there's more room to experience joy. I've told you the things that bring me joy, and you're giving me opportunities to experience those things each day. So that's a roundabout way. 2 ways to talk about, bring up, discuss as a leader, stress and burnout, and to do something with it from a leadership level. That's number 7. Number 6, the Great Resignation. Raise your hand if you've heard this one. I think this one might be the most simple of all of them. What do? Everyone's leaving. It's a great resignation. Everyone's leaving work. What are we going to do? I guess we're just going to keep turning people over. How's that working out for you? Is that helping people stay? Or is it making what it's doing when you say those things is you're losing all your agency in your role. You're basically saying there's nothing I can do about it. I disagree with that. And hear me out. The Great Resignation, I am leaving it. Think about it in terms of relationship. If you're listening to me, you understand I go back to ego and relationship more than any other button on my little computer game here. So if you think about relationship, if I'm resigning from a role, we tend to think in these macro themes. They're leaving. What's the data say at this highest level? How many times have you had to sit down in a great relationship? You're in a great relationship and you wanted to resign from that relationship. I love spending time and this is great. I mean, when I see you, I smile. I feel like good things are going to happen. Like time just passes by. Let's break up. It should be laughable to think about that. Think about your best friends. Think about the people that bring you joy. Now think about work. Why are people resigning in droves? Well, first of all, in your environment, if people are resigning from your role, think about the relationship, and I just covered it with stress and burnout, between person and job. Is it well defined? Is it clear? Do you have good fit to job? Do you have training for me to fill those gaps? Do I feel like there's a plan for me, the individual that works at the company? Yes or no? If I have that plan, we can keep moving down the line. And think about all the aspects of what a strong relationship has. Do I feel significant here? Does somebody, and by the way, it's not the company that makes me feel significant. How about my teammates? It doesn't even have to be my boss. How about my manager or a manager from another division, a friend over here, a person that I go to lunch with? If there's somebody within the company, somebody at like N of one that makes me feel significant, what would I be resigning for? What would I be looking for? I feel fulfilled. I have a plan for me. I have a relative fit for my job. I understand what's required of me. Like I like to come in here and do this. I'm excited where it's going. And I have someone, or even more if you can do it, that makes me feel significant, that listens to me, makes me feel heard, responds to me. Those type of things are, if I am resigning from your company, odds are really good. That's what I'm going to seek out. When I say I'm really just trying to revision my career, you don't tend to do a lot of revisioning when you're filled up in a relationship. You're not looking to date other people if you are fulfilled in a relationship. So this is a relationship game, and we can go down. I don't want to go down the legalese, but if you're not paying people well enough for the role on the regular, could you lose people? Sure. If you're dealing with union, well, that'd be nice, but we have a union. They're still human beings. Now, there's some more gymnastics you have to do in those environments, more influencing without authority, if you will. And I have another recent podcast about that. But it's a relationship game. When you get down to relationships, think about it. Each of you listening to this was born for this, to connect with other human beings. And that's the Great Resignation. And that should be your answer. What am I supposed to do with it? Answer it with that, and then watch what your turnover and retention looks like relative to your peers. It's going to go down. Your turnover will go down. Trend number 5, caring for employees' well-being. Caring for employees' well-being. And you can add there's a lot of different jargonese for well-being, employee health, things of that nature. I would start off with number 1, am I listening to people? So if I'm caring for employees' well-being, I think it starts with listening. Do I even care that you're my employee? Care is the first word. And then when it comes to well-being, I run basically a fitness business outside of my role as a leadership consultant, and these things are slowly starting to merge together. And a discount program or one-off things that are coupled under corporate wellness or well-being is not what we're talking about here. This wouldn't be a work trend if everyone was succeeding with it. Many of these programs are an abject waste of money. And why they are is because when it comes to well-being, when it comes to changing me, if I am substantially overweight, if I'm low energy, if I have addiction issues, if I have financial troubles, the list could go on of things that make me unwell. Each one of these is going to involve a level of accountability and a level of microdosing. And I've talked about this before, microdosing suffering. Microdosing and testing fear. If I'm caring for an employee's well-being and they are unwell, the things that they are currently doing that are contributing to that state need to be addressed. I said start with listen. They can only be addressed with an employee if they deem it's an actual problem. If I don't think any of these things are a problem, you're going to struggle to get me to move. I might be on my medicine. I might be doing all of these different things, and I feel like I'm crushing it. I'm doing great. This is great. Relative to my family or whatever, I'm actually not the worst off. Okay? Everyone around you might think that you could probably do better than that. But until me as an individual decides, this has got to change. I'm tired of being exhausted every day. I'm tired of being paycheck to paycheck with how I spend my money or where I invest my money. I'm tired of my relationships just being unfulfilling. This is all employee well-being. And if you push back on me and say, well, hey, we're talking about work, but we're at work right now, BJ. You're telling me that all these other things don't impact the ability of me to come in and be self-confident and productive in your work environment. I'd counter that they absolutely do. So what should you do about it? This answer to this one is maybe a little bit more complex. There might not be an easy way to do this. But if you're going to start something, you can listen first, like we talked about in enabling organizational culture and changing workplace environment. Where are the biggest struggles coming from? Is it coming from healthcare costs from your business? Are your people in general out of shape, like physical shape? Maybe there's a program there that's a pay to play for an employees. You come in this, we will cover this. Partner with a local like personal training studio or a private coaching studio where they're getting actual coaches, not a tag flip 24-hour fitness. Yeah, go to the gym if you want, just kind of horse around in there. That is offensive. If I am going to get from here to there and I am going to achieve excellence and leave a current behavior set that is ingrained in me and habits, I am going to need a coach to do it. There needs to be something to pull me through. If not a coach, at minimum accountability. We're not doing this on our own in almost all cases. I won't say none. I'll say almost all cases. So if you think about the most successful people in the world, how many coaches do they have? How many coaches do you think, is LeBron James good at basketball? How many coaches do you think LeBron James has? Some of the more wealthy people, have you looked at them recently? I mean, even Bezos is just looking like he's jacked. So he just decided, I'm going to start working out on my own. What are the sheer odds Jeff Bezos programs his own workouts and does them without any supervision? I can go on and on and on. So if I want to care about my employees' well-being, and we're just sticking with just physical fitness at this point, come up with the program, pay for it, put your money where your mouth is, and then if you're providing it, go and do it. Lead by example and be the example you want to see your people follow. It's like anything else we'll cover in this list. So caring for employees' well-being, and again, if it's financial, we could talk about that. If it's diet, we can talk about that. If it's all stress and health, like we could talk about that. But there are coaching. Think about coaching. There are programs available and people out there. And when you look at the return on investment for those in lowered medical costs, lower time away from work, absences from work, and then also turnover. If I'm stressed and burned out all the time, it might not be because of work alone. It might be because I'm exhausted all the time, because I have no energy, because my diet's trash. So there's a lot to unpack with caring for employees' well-being. But again, starts with listening and then make a call. Pick your priority and then with your company, put real investment into it. Not just money, but executive time and leadership into following through on that front. That might be a harder weight to carry, but if you want to pound it out on the top 10 work trends list, number 5, do that. Number 4, talent attraction and retention in a candidate-driven market. I'm not going to spend much time on this one because if you go back to some of the other ones we talked about, the Great Resignation, stress and burnout, and enabling organizational culture, I basically hit on this one. If to be on the opposite end of the Great Resignation is other people are resigning from other businesses, are you creating a fertile environment for those talented people that can provide a ton of value to you to land at your company? Are you even prepared to have good people want to stay in your environment? I keep going back to listening and relationships and awareness. All of these things we've discussed so far make it way easier to attract talent. You will get referred talent. You won't have to be investing a ton of money to find them. They will find you. just like I would find any other amazing product. It's not that hard if the value is there. Be valuable as a place to work and people will talk about it. But you don't have to project your value. How do I market that? Be that. When you interact with a company, you can tell people that are aligned with that company that want to be there. And you can tell when people don't. It's simple. I work with a variety of healthcare organizations right now. And I talk to a lot of people. And when the door closes, you hear a starkly different interpretation of what the culture is. And I work with places all over, basically the Midwest when it comes to healthcare. And there's an example right there of it's not about knowing what to do for talent attraction and retention. It's about following through and doing it and understanding it starts with leadership. And if leadership actually doesn't care and they think they're winning, it's just like an unaware person. If I'm unaware, I need coaching. Investing in coaching for me is going to be a waste of money. So talent attraction, again, rewind and think about caring for employee well-being, the great resignation, stress, and burnout. It all hits that, and that should take care of itself. Trend number 3, managing the transition into post-pandemic work. Managing the transition into post-pandemic work. Well, let's break this down. What is post-pandemic work? Post-pandemic work, think about what the pandemic is. We are tribal people. We are human beings. We build and live, and we are the dominant species on earth because we know how to build connection. We talk to each other. We created language so we can gossip and share and build shared norms and religions and all of these things that build connection and reasons to get together and to talk and to enjoy each other's presence. What was the last 2 years and some change? Isolation, separation, distance. What did that do? That fed, my friend, ego. Ego is the distancer. When I feel alone, my ego tells me someone put me in this situation. There is a force or a person or something that is isolating me. I feel alone. I feel left out. I feel not included. I feel put to the side. And all the meanwhile, what's happening as I scroll through my social media feed? Now, I might find some people in the same situation, which only validates my ego. Or, well, BJ, there's really good things going on. I know, but when my ego is turned on, I see all those other good things. Why are they having all that fun? We're in a pandemic, dang it. They shouldn't be enjoying. Look at all these people smiling. What's Karen doing down in St. Martin? That's not fair. I'm stuck in my house in Michigan. So either way, you're like, wow, like no matter what I do when I'm stuck in the pandemic, it's just, I get in these silos. And I'm going to start feeling bad. I'm going to feel depressed. I'm going to start feeling anxious. I'm going to start feeling worried. And I have to direct that energy somewhere. And if we don't have that managed, we don't maintain our self-awareness, we don't think about that, all of a sudden I need to go find an enemy. And a safe enemy to think about is work. Well, it must be my job. My job just doesn't bring me joy anymore. I used to like it, but now I don't like it. Maybe, but hold on. Come back to the things we talked about earlier. People want to be with other people. I want to be in relationships. So in great relationships, and if I'm spending time with people it's a great relationship, do I experience burnout? No. Do I experience stress as I'm in a joyful, collaborative, engaging relationship? No. Am I respecting other people? Like, am I respecting diversity? Am I respecting other people in that group? It's a lot easier when I see them, when I'm with them. Culture. Am I experiencing a culture from my desk in my house that I've been sitting at for 2 years? Probably not much. Do I feel cared for? And am I well? Not completely, because you're a human being and you're essentially in exile. So I think I've laid it on thick enough. What was the pandemic? It put everyone in some form of exile. If you go back in time, not too far, exile was almost worse than death. So all of the triggers go off in us. They're like, this is miserable. I have to do something about this. So how do we manage transition to post-pandemic work? The simple answer to this, what am I supposed to do with it as a leader? Get people back together. And when I say this, it's not mandatory, get to the office tomorrow. Everyone's got to be back into the office. Easy. How about start with fun? How about start with something light? How about just put a plan together to ease people back into in-person contact? some in-person contact. If you're a diverse, like geographically diverse company, how about local pods of people getting together for something that is not work related per se, but it's about increasing work morale, re-engaging people in the culture. Post-pandemic work it's the same principles we've talked about. It's a relationship, and we've been in a very relationship allergic environment for a while now. And I know that there's a workforce, group of people, me included, that is hungry, starving, some of them, to feel significant, to look into another person's eyes in person, to smile, laugh, have a little fun, and be human together again. So it's less of a transition if you were already closer to that in the first place. If you're a business, we were all remote. We went all remote. We just stopped doing everything. We don't even have an office anymore. You might not necessarily want to rethink not having an office, but you should probably put a premium on how do we get people actually together on the regular? How do we build deeper relationships? And doing things together will do that. That's trend number 3. Trend number 2, closing in on the end of our list here, ensuring inclusive environments and cultures. I'm going to tag that on to creating effective diversity, equity, inclusion interventions. I think those work together. And I think there, once again, how are we listening to people and how are we generating self-awareness and organizational awareness? It's an awareness exercise, and you can get feedback on most viable employee experience surveys, employee engagement surveys. There's many questions about that right now. Look at the data, look at what you've listened to, put things in priority, and then follow through with the changes, leadership. Not just next week on a one-off. Hey, we're going to do a project. We're going to do this thing next month. It needs to be organizational. So you have to pick only a few things or maybe one thing and go do it well to ensure inclusive environments and cultures within your workplace. Finally, number 1, and we'll land the plane on this one. Trend number 1 in the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology, that's SIOP's 10 work trends list for 2020 is employee engagement and organizational commitment of remote workers. Employee engagement and organizational commitment of remote workers. What am I supposed to do with this as a leader when I'm asked, BJ, what are you doing for employee engagement and organizational commitment of remote workers? I would go back and tag many of the bases I've already covered. It is a relationship with my remote workers. How well do I know what their needs are? How well are they connected with their job? Like, how do we know what their job is, their role, the things that are need to get done in the job? What type of development and training attention is that group getting for their career, to advance them in their career, in their job? Where am I building connection? Where am I helping folks feel significant in the way that they need to feel significant? Is it systematic? Is it programmatic? Is it easy for me as a leader to do those things with my remote workers? Or am I always trying to hustle budget? Well, I'd like to create budget for that. We'd like to get the remote workers together that, like, we have a group in Florida and we have a group in Texas and we have a group in SoCal. So there needs to be, if this is at the highest level, and this is really that important, what's the organizational commitment? Organizational commitment requires budget of time, energy, and resources, particularly from the leadership level, to focus on your remote workers. Back to listen to them. Who are the remote workers that are having a great experience? And then what is their job? Who are their managers? What type of patterns can you see emerge? It's great to know that some of them are already having a great experience and they've been with you for several years, because now you know in your current company it is possible. Expand those bright spots, figure out what's happening in those environments, and then replicate it. That's your nearest term chance of success. And employee engagement will follow. Employee engagement, again, is a function of relationship. And we've talked about this throughout all of these 10 work trends list. So as a leader, what am I supposed to do with this list? Here, are we doing something from this if it's getting slid across my table? Hopefully you see I've repeated many things, and you can play this back, that you can address multiple areas of these trends. And you can go back and look good in front of the CEO of the organization, in front of a board, in front of any stakeholders of the organization. And I think most importantly, in front of your team as a leader, to say, hey, we have a plan for this, and it involves being more human. It involves listening. It involves self-awareness. It will involve change for all of us, but it's change that's clearly directed at bringing us more joy so that we can all bring more value to the organization, to our customers. This should be the end we're working toward, and that's what all of these are angling in. So if you're intimidated by this list and thinking, oh my gosh, I got to come up with this program, who's doing it? I would say be wary of organizations that have titles for things. Oh, you want to fix that problem? Come over, spend this money with me. We fix that exact problem. Ooh, maybe they're awesome. But I'd say, hey, take a deep breath, draw back, and ask yourself, what does it mean to be a leader? And I would go back to, what does it mean to be good at having relationships? Good at proactively caring about other people, their outcomes, customers, your teammates, your employees, everyone. If you can keep that listener mindset, that curiosity mindset, that self-aware mindset, you're building that in the organization, you're going to knock down all these pins and every other one, and you're going to have a plan. Hopefully today helped you connect some more solid lines to things that you're already doing. This is already addressing that. Great. Make those connections. Reinforce it. If you have never drawn these lines before, understand that we're talking about the same thing in many of these areas. Don't make it confusing. Simplify it. And then ask yourself, of the 10 workplace trends, or the 9, because number 9 is not on here for some reason, which ones of these are the biggest problem for our organization? Forget the world. In your organization, what are the biggest problems? Is it the stress and burnout? Is it unwell employees? Low energy in your organization? Or is it turnover? We're experiencing too much negative turnover in an organization. So hopefully this has been helpful. As usual, you know how to get a hold of me. If this is something that you would like to sit down and talk more about, ping me. Let's talk about it. Happy to do so and see if there's a way or a couple questions in most cases that we can do to align you toward these kind of ends for your organization. Thanks so much.